Hey. Hey, so I just got back from a week-long vacation with my family. So me, my husband, and my kids. And then also my dad, his new wife. We went there for their marriage, for them to get married. And my sister, her boyfriend, my dad's brother and sister, their kids' kids. And then the bride, so my new stepmom, her whole family. So I think there was like 50 of us, and we went to Jackson Hole and we stayed there for the week. And so I have come up with my 5 tips for surviving a family vacation or any kind of vacation in eating disorder recovery. Okay, so let's get right into it. My first tip is to set reasonable expectations and to also set your intentions or your priorities. The first few days we were there, I was struggling a lot more, and I think it's because I had really high expectations. My dad told us that this would be like our family vacation, like me and my immediate family, me, my husband, my kids. It'll be like our vacation in Jackson, and there'll be a marriage there too. But there weren't going to be a lot of plans with the whole family. So I thought that this was going to be just like a great time to get into nature and to have a lot of quality time with just my small family. And I was really looking forward to that. So I think my expectations were too high, and I didn't take into account that there'd be all of these family members there. So midway through, like the second day, I had to sit myself down and have a little talk and be like, this is a wedding vacation, and it's going to be different than what I thought it was going to be. And so I had to readjust my expectations and not think that it was going to be this epic trip. So I also, going into the trip, set my intention. And I made a video about this a few videos back. But my intention for this trip was to make memories with my family, enjoy nature. Let's see, I wrote down some notes. Make memories with my family, enjoy nature, and be helpful. So that's what I wanted to do, and I was really clear on what I didn't want to do, which is engaging in my eating disorder by binging and purging, or engaging in my eating disorder by obsessing about food and weight. So whenever I felt myself going to those 2 places I didn't want to go to, I'd be aware of it, and I would choose to engage in being present with my family, doing something fun to make memories, looking at nature or going out into nature, or seeing how I could be helpful. So this really helped me as what's the right word? It's like I was sailing a ship, and I was wanting to go to the island of memories and fun and being helpful and enjoying nature. And when I would be taking like the readings of my ship to determine where I was and where my ship was sailing to, if I noticed my ship was sailing to the island of eating disorder that I had lived in for 15 years, I would be like, oh, I'm going the wrong directions, and I would reset my actions and I would steer back towards that island. I was really aware that I wouldn't be perfect at this, that it wasn't perfectionism, because that's part of my eating disorder, but it was this taking account of where I am and where I'm going and setting my sails in that direction of my intentions. So that was really helpful for me. So when you're going on your vacation, be clear of not setting too high of expectations, setting what you want your intention to be, and also identifying the red flags for what you don't want. So when you notice those red flags coming up, you can be sailing towards your intentions instead of the eating disorder. My second tip is having a safe space and safe people to talk about your feelings to. So for me, that was some eating disorder Facebook groups, some eating disorder friends I've made through those Facebook groups, some of my recovery friends. I'm in AA, so I have a lot of recovery friends that I feel really safe in talking about my eating disorder to, and then also my husband. So every day I'd kind of check in with a few people, or when I felt stuff coming up, I would check in with those people. I also had a few really good conversations with my husband. There was one day in particular that I was really obsessing about my weight, and it was helpful for me to talk to my husband. So I'm going to talk about that day when I was obsessing about my weight in the next tip. But what I've been aware of is in these past 15 years, I've used my eating disorder a lot to bottle my feelings in. I didn't want to tell anyone about my eating disorder, so I kept all of my fears and all of my feelings and the secret of my eating disorder to myself, and I bottled them all in, and it would either explode out into like an emotional outburst that made no sense to anyone and was really confusing to them and really hurtful to me because I had all these emotions but no one could understand them because I wasn't sharing how I was feeling. Or what would happen even more than that was I'd bottle all these feelings in, and those feelings can't be bottled in forever. And so I would need an outlet, and my outlet was purging. And it was like this release, and it was a release because I wasn't letting them out any other way. So having safe spaces and people to talk to, being able to talk to my husband, also journaling, so that I could be getting my feelings out without having to resort to unhealthy things like over-exercising or restricting my food or throwing up my food. So that was also really helpful for me. So tip number 2 is making sure that you have people that you can talk to, whether in person, like my husband, or via social media, like Facebook groups, or just texting friends who know what's going on with you. My third tip is being silly. So when I'm in my eating disorder, it's really serious. Like I'm taking things so serious. I'm taking life so serious. I'm taking my body size so serious. And I just get in this really serious black and white thinking. So when I can be silly, it can help me turn that off. And it can just be this fun outlet. And like tip 2, it can be a way for me to release energy. Also, when I'm in my eating disorder, I'm in my flight or fight nervous system. So my body is like really in this nervous system. My heart beats fast, like I'm so stressed out. And I use my eating disorder to flee. So fight or flight or fight or flight. So fleeing, I use my eating disorder to flee the situation I'm in. So maybe I'm physically there, but mentally I'm not there. I've like gone into this calorie counting, or I'm like literally sneaking away so I can throw up, or I'm isolating myself. Like I'm using my eating disorder to flee the situation I'm in. I'm also using the eating disorder to fight myself. Eating disorders are very destructive. So I'm physically fighting myself. So that nervous system, it pumps cortisol, it pumps stress hormones through your body, and it's not how I want to live. And I always feel so tired because my body is like always on overdrive. My body thinks I'm being chased by a bear when I'm engaging in this. So when I can play, I help turn on my other nervous system, which is rest and digest. I'm like playing, I'm relaxing. It's just a really good outlet to switch those modes from flight or fight to rest and digest. So ways I played was I would dance with my kids, or I let my kids climb on my body. Like I have my son jump to my chest, and then I help him flip off. Or I lay on my back and I fly the kids on my feet. Or there was a guitar I played, and I don't really play guitar. I'm actually going to get a ukulele because playing the guitar, even though I had no idea what I was doing, was a really fun way for me to be present with something else other than my eating disorder. And also playing goes back to that intention I have of making good memories. So that was really helpful for me to find ways to bring play into my day. So that's tip number 3. Figure out how you can be silly and bring play into your day. Okay, so tip number 4 is no matter how you feel, you have to eat. And also within that tip is recognizing what might be causing you to feel fat or to spin out on those obsessive thoughts. And even when you're having those obsessive thoughts, you still need to eat. So there was one day in particular where I just felt so fat. And yes, I am gaining weight because I'm no longer restricting, and that's my reality. But there's a difference between recognizing my reality, like, oh, you've gained a little bit of weight. Okay, move on. And obsessing about how I look in the mirror, or how, like, trying to feel the fat on my face, like just pinching out, really do that. But just any of that obsession around gaining weight, recognizing what's causing it really helps me. And then also remembering and taking the action of eating even if I'm feeling fat. So for me, when I was feeling really fat that day, my brain, and I've talked about this in other videos, is my brain hones in on feeling fat and then wanting to count calories or wanting to compensate in some way. And it holds on to that because it's almost like a form of meditation. If my brain can obsess on that enough, all of this other stuff out here, the volume gets turned down on and the volume gets turned up on this. And it's like a form of meditation, and it gives me some feeling of control. But the truth is, this is what's really bothering me. So that day I was obsessing about my weight. What was really going on was I was spending so much time with my family. My family is so into eating clean and exercising, and everyone was going for runs, and just being around my family and around that environment, and not reverting, is that the right word? Going back to the age of being 15. Like, I always kind of go back to my 15 self when I was so angry and my eating disorder was in full swing and I was this failure of the family. So it's really hard for me to be in that situation and not go back to my 15-year-old self. That was really weighing on me. So my brain was trying to help me. The eating disorder was trying to help me by saying, you don't need to focus on all those problems, just focus on your weight. And if you can get your weight to get lower, everything will be okay. And I know that that's not the answer, because even when I've gotten my weight really low, like, I was in so much pain. So it's not a true thing, but for me to recognize, okay, so this is what's going on, which is making me think about weight. So I'm going to talk to my husband. I'm going to reach out to those safe spaces and share my feelings and not bottle them up. And then I'm going to figure out how I can deal with this. So going with my family and just being honest and being myself. And when I'm there, reminding myself that I'm a good person. And although I might not have been following, like, the success that my family is so into, to get your body to look perfect and to be financially successful, that those things aren't really important to me. What's important to me is being with my family, being in nature, and being helpful. So recognizing that really helps me. It doesn't make my weight change, but it helps me remember that my weight isn't the priority, and that's the eating disorder, and I don't want to engage in that. And even when I'm feeling big, to eat whatever I want, whenever I want, and not letting my restrictive mind come in. I ate a ton of pie, I ate a ton of sandwiches, I ate waffles, I just ate without the restriction. Where before, I would go into a situation that was triggering, focus on my weight to avoid the triggers, and then because I was so focused on my weight, decide I shouldn't eat anything, or if I eat, I should throw up, or I need to move a ton to compensate for my eating. So I didn't let any of that happen because I was so aware of what was going on. So that awareness really helped me. Is knowing when you need to take space. So there were a few times where I just felt so much internal tension, and I was trying to make memories, I was trying to be helpful, but it was just too much for me, that I needed to go to my room and breathe. I needed to go on a walk with my kid while they napped and listen to a podcast. I needed to go for a drive while my kids napped in the car and leave everyone behind. There were a few times, and I wasn't isolating. Sometimes I will isolate and I won't see anyone, and I won't even be present when I'm with them. This was different. This was like a form of self-care. Okay, the internal pressure is building up. You just need to go recenter yourself so you can return to the situation from a more centered, loving place. So that space was really, really helpful for me. So to review, the first one is don't set unreasonable expectations. set appropriate expectations, maybe even lower, so that you can exceed your expectations and know your priorities. So when you feel yourself drifting over into the eating disorder, you can come back to your priorities. Number 2 is having a safe space or safe people that you can be accountable to and share your feelings up so you don't bottle up throughout the trip. 3 is take time to find play in your day, to be silly, to enjoy life and not become too serious about the way you look or about food. Step 3 is remembering that no matter how you feel, you need to eat. You need to eat every meal, every snack. You need to eat enough. And also being aware of what's causing you to obsess in the eating disorder so that you can deal with or be present with the real issues instead of just focusing and meditating on the eating disorder, because these problems will always be there no matter how long you're in this world. So being aware of that is really helpful. And the last one is take space when you need it. Recenter yourself, remember what's important to you, remember your intention, recommit to recovery, and then you can return to your family from a more centered space. So I hope these tips help you. Recovery is so worth it. It's so cool for me to be back home after a week and to look back on the trip. And although I was really working my recovery, my trip wasn't just about my recovery. I made really good memories. I was really present with people. I didn't engage in any eating disorder behaviors, and it feels so good. And I feel like that trip strengthened my recovery because it shows me that I can go somewhere else. I can be with the people that trigger me the most in the world. I can eat out for every meal, and I can still be okay. So if you have any questions, comments, let me know. Hey, thanks for watching this video.